Hey, thanks for jumping on with us today. We're going to dive right into it today to talk about essential church website tips for 2023, things that matter now for your church, changes you can make today to your website that are going to make a dramatic impact when it comes to the growth and health of your church. I value your time. I so appreciate you taking the time to jump on today, but we're going to dive right into it to see if we can just maximize the value for the minutes you put in here. So from there, let's go for it. First of all, I just want to quickly highlight what are the reasons that we want to talk about a church website still in 2023. 2010 came and went where all of a sudden the websites really landed on the scene. Maybe you developed a new website somewhere in there, somewhere in the last few years, but often there can kind of develop a fatigue around the website. Maybe you didn't really track whether or not it was successful in the growth of your church. Maybe you kind of decided good enough, it's there, it's doing what it needs to do. But at the end of the day, think of the way we all still connect with technology, whether we're hiring a local service in town, whether our kids are attending an event, whatever we're doing, we still pull out our phones and Google things when we want to know about them. And the same thing in 2023 is still happening with people attending your church. That's often a newcomer. Maybe they just moved to town. Maybe they're had a meaningful conversation with a friend, and they're just seeking more in life. They're going to Google for a church in their area, and your church may be that one that lands right there. And we still hear so often people walking through the front doors of a church and saying, I Googled you. That's how I got here. That's how I landed here. And we know that this can still have an incredible impact. In addition to that, there's still your existing congregation that are looking for information. Maybe they're looking to go deeper in their spiritual walk. They heard something in the sermon on Sunday and they want to connect more with what you said. They're going to go to your website as a key place to find out more. So we have a responsibility to make sure that when someone's coming to us, that we're there to answer those questions, and the website is still a very valuable landing spot for that. So let's dive into it and talk about why a church website does still matter in 2023. So here's a couple things we're going to highlight today. A few things you can do, really things you can assess throughout your website to determine whether or not it's as effective as it possibly can be. The first thing is we want to tell a story. How are we actually engaging people with the content on our website rather than just distributing information and posting it up almost like a bulletin board and hoping it connects with people? We expect something more when we're connecting, or maybe better said, we can do so much more in terms of really capturing someone into what we're doing. We're going to talk about the mobile experience, how phones and tablets are still and only growing as a way people connect with the web, and so that still matters when it comes to your church website. We're going to talk about online giving and just the opportunity that is right in front of you as far as capturing that important part of people's discipleship stage when they want to contribute to your church. We're going to talk about SEO optimization. We're not going to dive into code and all that stuff, but we're going to talk about why this matters and why it's still something to really think about when it comes to people, again, searching for your church. And finally, we're going to talk about visual appeal, some really practical tips that you can apply to your church website to help increase engagement, increase the time people spend on it, increase the time they take learning and connecting with your church. So with there, let's get started. So first one I want to talk about is how to use storytelling. This is a concept that I think is kind of taking your church website to another level. I think so often when we're putting anything together, whether it be a poster or a brochure, or maybe it was putting the content on your church website, often it's about just making sure the right information is found there. And obviously, sometimes that's just good enough. If that's all the time you had for in that very first moment, that's good enough. But maybe now's the opportunity to really think through, how can we take our website to that next level? How do we actually use the power of story when it comes to the content on our website? And that's the difference in landing on a website and saying, I need an answer to there. Perfect. There's the service time. That's great. As opposed to coming away being like, that church completely understands where I'm at, where our family's at, maybe where a friend is at. I know I can trust them and I want to step into it. And actually, how do we help them step into it? And that's what the power of story can help us accomplish. And this is just a statement I want to make, that most churches do need to audit the content of their website. How are you doing at this? How is your website doing at actually capturing someone and making them want to read more, want to dig further, and actually help them take those next steps? Because that's what we can accomplish. And a really good principle over the last few years that I've really gone into and have appreciated appreciated is the concept of story brand. It's a book written by Donald Miller a number of years back, but really it's capturing the age-old concept of how story captures us, the way we watch a movie, the way we read a book. What is it about the narrative that actually wants us to dive deeper and keep reading and keep learning? And we can really bring those principles to your website. So what I wanted to highlight here was how you can actually craft the story of your church through your website using the principles from StoryBrand. First one is to focus your story on the visitor. So often, and this is just, it's the default, is we write about ourselves, we write about our church. We see this with businesses where they write about their business, and that's fine as far as getting that information on there. Again, that's like kind of your very first step. But what connects so much more with someone is actually if you can make it about them. If you can say something like, we have a seat saved for you. We would love to see you this Sunday morning, as opposed to, hey, come join us. We are a welcoming church. We have our services at 9 and 11. You make it about them. They begin to picture themselves. They see themselves in that story. And all of a sudden, it just shifts the entire narrative in their head because you're connecting with them. The second step here goes further down that. Identify the problems they are facing. Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling lost? Are you having problems in your marriage? Or is there something we can do to help you? Is there a gap there where maybe our church, our community, Jesus can begin to fill that piece for you? Identifying the problems helps people know that, hey, this is a church for them. This is a church where they can find comfort, they can find community, all those different pieces. Whereas if we don't ever say it, then we can't just assume they're going to make that natural jump. Next step is to create a clear plan. This is something that we're actually probably half decent at in terms of saying, hey, come join us on a Sunday service, come join us at this, your kids can come to this VBS event, or your teens can come to our youth group. That's all really good. So we want to make sure that what we follow up the problem with is a plan for how they can begin to solve that problem. So let's make sure all those different pieces are in front of them. But it's the next step where we begin to struggle, which is giving them a strong call to action, making sure they can understand the next steps that they need to take to accomplish that. So if you're struggling in your marriage, hey, we're running a marriage course, fill out this form to come join us for it. So often we get one or two of those steps, but we miss those final ones of how they actually connect back, or we make the steps confusing. Call our office. Maybe they're there on a Friday night at 10 p.m. reading your website, and calling the office isn't an option, or they leave a voicemail and you might get back to them in 3 or 4 days. If we can create a really strong call to action, we make those steps easier. We make it simple to join a small group. We make it simple to volunteer to join team for a Sunday. All those different things are going to make the biggest difference of capturing the person in that moment that you've identified their problem, given them a plan, and then let them have that call to action where they can actually take the step you're looking for them to take right on the website. The whole piece can happen right in that one moment. And then finally is ending your story with success, making sure they understand the win that's going to come from taking these steps, from following the plan that you've laid out. And that's a matter of testimonials and case studies, of letting people know the life transformation that's existed because of your church. What happened when they joined a small group? What happened when they joined and volunteered for team to help out at your church? What was the impact? Because once I hear that success, I'm like, I want that. That person sounds like their problem was solved in the way I wanted it to be. So by focusing our story on that visitor, identifying that problem, creating a clear plan, calling them to action, and showing them the success, they're going to understand the path of what it means to be part of your church and where they're going to be better off for it, where that transformation is going to come. So I hope that's clear. I love that concept, and I think that really is the most important piece to think about when identifying where to improve your website. Second is to consider the mobile experience. The reality is that most of us work all day on a desktop computer. If you're the church administrator or leader of the church, you're probably on your desktop. And so when you go to edit your website, when you go to make those changes, I'm just going to slide my face out of the way there so we can read that. When you go to make those changes, it's so often on a desktop experience we're seeing it. But the reality is that over 60% of website traffic comes from mobile devices. So many people are viewing it in a different way than we're actually creating it. So what you want to do is do not neglect what that experience is like on mobile. You might think, oh, this section looks amazing. We're highlighting this big conference we've got coming up 2 weeks. People are going to love it. But if you actually go to the device, maybe you have to scroll way down to get there, that they might never make it down. And when you get there, the formatting's all broken. It doesn't quite look as right. Maybe the button's the wrong color specifically on mobile. And so we just need to make sure you take those extra moments to go back and see what it's going to be like, because if you edit it one way but they're viewing it another, then the two experiences can be completely disconnected, and we actually could lose a major opportunity. So never a bad idea. Just pull up your website from time to time on a mobile device. Maybe it's a system you have where each time you edit, you go and just make sure that still looks good on mobile, but that will make a great difference to the experience of people on your website. Just wanted to highlight a few different visuals here so you can see what that would look like in terms of making sure that that experience still feels cohesive. Things don't change dramatically. We want to make sure it's consistent right across the board. Finally, online giving. Well, I guess next up, I should say online giving, and just making it easy for people to give at your church. This one obviously really took a dramatic impact with COVID. All of a sudden, we either didn't have a service to meet at, or people weren't comfortable passing the offering basket by. And so we really all started to make that next major jump in how much we were willing and able to give digitally. And so I think it's no different, obviously, when it comes to your church. Some things have gone back now with after COVID, but at the end of the day, this is still a way that people are transacting. They're expecting to be able to jump into your church website and be able to donate in some way. So we want to make that process so simple. Obviously with Tithely, this is something we've always valued deeply. This is a core part of what we offer. Just making that experience quick and painless, letting them easily give right through the website. One key highlight is to make sure it's in your main navigation with a word that makes sense, like donate or give or tithe or whatever it would be. Making sure that experience is optimized for mobile. Again, that's where so much of our traffic's coming from. That has to be great too. And this is that reality that if you make that experience great, they're going to know that this is a dependable, easy way to contribute to your church. We don't want any roadblocks. When the Lord puts it on someone's heart to give and contribute, we want to make that just a flowing process all the way through, not make them jump through hoops and hurdles to have to get there. And next up is SEO optimization. This is the idea that people are searching for your church, and what are they finding when they get there? There might have been, again, two people having coffee. They say, hey, you have to check out this church. They're amazing. They deal with exactly the kind of thing you've just been telling me about. So they're going to jump on. They're either going to search just church in your city, or they're actually going to search for the name of your church. Do you know what they're finding when they get there? Do you know what types of things they're searching? Are they searching just the name? Are they searching just the area? Or are they searching for something specific like marriage counseling in this area? Are they searching for divorce care or prayer requests or whatever it would be? But I think we want to think through those different pieces, because the reality is if you want someone to find you, you have to have those words located within your website. It's why so often we always will show up high for the name of our church, but sometimes maybe we don't show up high for our area if we've only put our address in one place. So we want to make sure we're really highlighting those different pieces that we want to show up. Figure out within your team what keywords and titles are people looking for. What do we think people are going to look for? What is our church known for that people are going to be wanting to find? Let's make sure they can get there. And then what you do there is you make sure the words are within the content. You can get some good titles and keywords there to highlight those specific pieces. And then again, optimizing content for local searches. That's making sure the neighborhoods within your city are highlighted, making sure they're appearing multiple times. Obviously, we want it to have great content, cohesive. We're not looking to clutter your website with all these different random words. We're going to want to make it work within the flow of the content, but that idea that make sure your content is present if you expect people to search for your church using those words. Next up is visual appeal. And this is one that I think, again, can so often kind of fall by the wayside. Once we just start getting the content in there, we're happy, it's loaded, and maybe we don't actually take that extra second to stop and check whether or not the website's actually where we wanted it to get to, whether or not it feels really nice. And so I just have a few principles here that make a dramatic difference from looking at a website and being like, wow, that's nice, versus, oh, there's too much going on, it's cluttered, I need to scroll away or click away or whatever. And so the first one of those is white space. And the concept here is that we don't want to put everything right up against each other. We don't want text bumping up against the side. We don't want boxes hovering right next to the text. We don't want pictures hitting other text. We want to leave lots of space. And what that does is it lets the eye just rest in different spots. We see it with anything. If we have a poster or a newsletter and we just fill it everywhere, it's hard to know where to look or how to look at it, or we don't want to look at it too long, or it's hard to really pick off the important information. White space lets the eye just kind of rest around there. And I've got an example on the right side here that highlights some of these principles, but you can kind of see how we really see a community with Jesus at the center. There's a picture that shows us a sense of that community, but we can see the picture clearly. It all fits really well. It feels really simple. The second thing is high quality photos and video. I understand that not everyone has a professional photographer at their church. Even if you do, they may not have volunteered in this capacity. But getting great photos, again, makes a dramatic difference when we talk about a church website that is engaging and you want to spend time on versus one that can be a little bit more challenging to visually look at. It's hard to maybe make out some of the photos. They're not necessarily aesthetically pleasing. Great photos are an amazing investment for your church when you can either, again, have someone volunteer within the church, or maybe you can hire someone online for a few $100s to come to the church one Sunday and just grab a bunch of photos of your fellowship time, of the service, of the tech team working, all those different pieces that will just have a great give a great understanding of what it means to visit your church on a Sunday morning. So those lower all those barriers for someone when they're thinking about attending, they're considering it. They show up on your website, and all of a sudden they can see it. I can now understand what this basic photo here. I have a sense of what the time is going to be like, maybe in the lobby, how people are dressed. That helps me understand how I should maybe be dressing. It just lets me know this looks like a safe, fun place to come visit. So really taking that moment to just invest in those photos and the video that you put on your website, I think just helps really take that website to a next level. And then finally, the last thing is large headlines and simplified text. And this idea here is that, again, when headlines are large, it helps us identify where quickly to scan. We read the web different than we might read a book. And that's the idea that we're kind of scanning for things that connect with us. And then once we've connected with a headline and say, that's what I'm looking for, that's the information I wanted to know, then we'll dive deeper and look into some of the body of that text. And so those big headlines just help make your website more scannable, which help people kind of flow through the web easier. But then even once we have our text, we want to be very careful not to overwhelm them with how much we put there. And so we want to try and keep our paragraphs to 2 or 3 sentences each. So we're just kind of stating the core information. If you need to keep going on, you say, there's just so much more to communicate, take it to another page. And then on that page, you can deep dive and talk about more things. But try to really avoid having these long runs of text, because often, again, that just feels overwhelming. People don't have time for it. Maybe they'll bookmark it. Maybe they'll email the link to themselves to read another time. And so often you kind of lose that potential moment right there. So with that, I just wanted to give you some really practical steps on 3 things you can do today to begin the process of enhancing your church website. 1, I would recommend putting a meeting in the calendar with your team. Maybe you can do that right now as soon as this video is over, and work through these 5 points to assess if you can do better with your website. Is there changes you can make? Because maybe some of these things might overwhelm you. Like, I don't even know where to start, but there might be someone on your team who does. And sometimes it's just a matter of talking through it. Maybe you click through each of the links of the website together and say, are we doing this well? Are we doing this well? Is there any value here that we could change? And hopefully that can make a helpful difference for you. Second, and here I just wanted to quickly highlight again those 5 points. So in case you want to screenshot or grab that here's the points that I would recommend talking through in that meeting with your team. Second up, I take our 5-minute church website assessment. So this is an assessment. You'll find a link on this page. And this is just going to be a few quick questions you can answer that help you determine which areas of your website are most in need of improvement. We're going to ask you questions about your navigation, about the design, about the content of your website. And if you can give us some answers on those, we're going to send you back a response that lets you know which areas we think are most in need of improvement, and actually provide you additional teaching on each of those specific areas. So we hope that's a great help for you. There's no cost to it. It's just something we wanted to give to you as a way to help you, again, take your website to the next level. And then finally, I'd recommend taking a 10-minute look at Tithely sites. This is obviously Tithely's website platform, which has aimed from day one to solve a lot of these problems. Maybe you find your website difficult to edit, unintuitive. Maybe you think it's poorly designed, or maybe the bills are going up with everything getting more expensive these days. Maybe it's becoming unmanageable for your budget. Or maybe you've had a developer who you're having a tough time contacting. If any of these things have happened to you, Tithely sites could be an amazing solution for you. Every example I used in today's workshop was showcasing Tithely sites. And I think there's so many different pieces that we've talked about that you'll find so intuitive and easy to work with. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you so much for your time today. I love getting to talk about these things with you, and I hope you found value in it as well. Thanks so much.